All right, welcome to another episode of Jeep Torque. Yeah, all right. Start off with a little Rolling Stones, but we're going to cut this off right now. All right, we'll get right to it. On this episode, we're going to talk about the braking system on the Jeep JK. So, I was using a PowerStop big brake kit. They worked out really well as the Z36 towing package version. Had them for a little over 3 years or so. And one day I was driving, and about a half hour into the drive, I started to smell the brakes as if I was doing 100 miles an hour and just hit the brakes over a couple of times. And then you get that smell, almost like a rubbery burning smell. So I'm like, all right, something's not right. And then all of a sudden, the Jeep started pulling to the left to my driver's side. So I got all the way home, jacked it up, took the front tire off, and started to do an inspection. And then right away, I realized that the caliper had froze up on me. And I'm like, all right, let me just see if it was something with the fluid or if I could, you know, get it out of that state and work it out. But it was completely locked up on me. So I said, okay, all right, so it's time for me to upgrade these things. I do have 37-inch tires. It was fine with the 35s on the PowerStop Big Brake tow kit. But with 37s, that's some meat, especially with the BF Goodrich's that I have on there. So I ended up going over to my favorite site to see what they had in stock, and really my thinking was to go with a PowerStop Big Brake kit, which I've heard a lot about, and I love watching Ian on Motor Trend, and he's installed it on several of his installs, and he always has some good things to say about it. So I had a little bit of an issue that I went to go check it out, and it said it was around 6 to 7 months, I think close to 8 months on back order. And I just couldn't have the Jeep offline for that long, and I didn't want to go with some stock pads and just change everything from what I had already with the power stop. So I was like, all right, let me just see what we have going as far as Wilwoods and some higher end. But just to share with you, this is what I originally had on the Jeep here, which is the PowerStop Z36 Extreme Tow and Truck and Tow brake kit. No issues with it. I have a 19 and a half inch boat that I would tow, and I had no problems with it. You know, maybe some weekend runs with the trailer on the back as well. Um, no issues. Never had problems. It lasted a little over 3 years. So I was like, all right, let me just see what else I could do here and get as far as like more of a higher end type of style. So I ended up going with the Wilwood Aero 6 front big brake kit. They're definitely a little bit bigger than your power stops, the Z36s. These are almost 14 inches in diameter. Had a little bit of weight to it on the rotor, but the caliber itself were pretty light, very well built. Obviously, it's three pistons on each side, so very impressive. Very easy to put together as far as the front was concerned. But as far as the rears, we'll get into that in a second. That was a different story. But again, as you could tell by the price point, you know, it's a fairly expensive product, but they last for a very long time. So I've had it on for about 8 to 9 months. Does create a little bit more dust, but nowhere near with the noise that my wife's Porsche would constantly do. You hit the brakes, and it was just that squeaky noise from the ceramic and the way that those are built, but which are no different than the Willwoods, to be honest with you. So I did that and ordered the front kit and waited for those to get here. At that point, I had the Jeep already in the garage, all jacked up, and the tires were all off, and I was starting to take everything off and record the whole entire process. Which, by the way, I uploaded the video on that whole install. It's a little over an hour. Check it out on my YouTube channel. Just go through it. You could forward a little bit and get to the parts that you need to check out. So that's the front side. And then with the rear side, I ended up going with the Superlite 4R. They were easy to assemble. Obviously, as you could tell from the picture here, you do have to put these guys together in order to save your stock parking brake. Relatively not hard to do that part. You just torque it down with that middle piece there, right to the rotor. The hard part here was the safety wire, which I didn't know at the time that I didn't have to use that. It's more for cars that have some serious torque. If you have a Charger, a Mustang, some sort of supercar that's pulling that heavy horsepower, 1,000 horsepower to the rear, you're gonna want that safety wire on those rotors. I didn't know that until I headed up to the Daytona Jeep Week and met with the Wilwood team that was there and promoting their products and showing off some of their stuff. And when I told the guy that I had installed, I had a few questions on as far as the maintenance with it. And he's like, "Oh, you didn't need to install that safety wire." He's like, "It's fine that you did, but you didn't have to go through all that trouble." That was probably the hardest part is getting that safety wire and doing it a couple of times. But once I had the right tool, which is looks like a pair of pliers, called a twist pliers, and it'll actually lock the safety wire together, and you pull the back part of it, and it twists the whole pliers to kind of twist the cables together and get them really tight. It's to prevent the bolts from twisting off. Again, if you're pushing a ton of torque and horsepower to that rear, which I'm not with my 3.6. I don't have a supercharger on it, not yet, but I'm not pulling that kind of horsepower where it could have done some damage like that. The hardest part, though, with the rear was definitely cutting that back plate. I did not take it off, I cut it in place. But there is a perforated line you could follow, an indent, if you will, on the back plate. So I just used my cutters and took my time going through, and then I had to grind it down because you have to have that rotor has to have space in the back to spin, and the back plate will get in the way. So you have to put it on, do some dry run tests, spin it with your finger, make sure it's not rubbing, and just keep grinding away. Again, check out the video that I uploaded. You'll be able to see everything that I did there. So it wasn't too bad on the front at all. The fronts were very easy. So the brake cables that these guys come with, or yeah, the brake cables, they're too short. The ones that come with these kits are more for a 2 inch or a stock lift, as where here, I'll just expand this a little bit, as where a more of the a lifted Jeep like mine, these cables here are not going to work for my 4.5 inch AEV lift that I have. So I ended up opting to getting a custom brake cables, which worked out really well. Ended up going with the Crown ones, and they have a bunch of layers on them, so they could take a beating. And if you're out and about, and I'll take the Jeep out, and I go through the Picayune down here and kind of go through a few things. So it takes a little bit of a beating. It looks pretty, but I also beat on it a little bit to see if it could handle everything I threw on it. But definitely, you're gonna have to get some custom brake cables if you're gonna go this route, and you have a lift kit on it. So that was really where the trouble was cutting that back plate. And once I got past that, I was almost at the finish line because at that point I had the front all ready to go, the cables in. Then you have to go through your whole brake fluid process of clearing that out. I do have a special tool that I use, if you will, a kind of a pump, and I hook it up to my compressor, and I was able to suck out as much brake fluid as I could through from all the lines within the Jeep. Definitely recommend you do that and get everything out. I also updated my master cylinder to a heavy duty Mopar master cylinder, and then also the booster as well. It's what they use for Jeeps that have the Dana 60 on the rear. So that really works well with the Wilwood system. And so far, it's been fantastic. I literally barely tap that brake, and it's right up at the top, and it'll come to a complete stop, no issues. At first, when they're cold, you do get this weird kind of not a noise, but you'll get that kind of feeling. It's not a squeak noise, but it'll almost like it's cold metal rubbing together. And then as they warm up, that completely goes away. But I think that's just part of the high performance brake system. So definitely check out the video that I posted. Let me know what you guys think, and then be on the lookout for my next one, which will be on the Mishimoto all aluminum thermostat with the 180 thermostat, all aluminum housing that I'll be installing. So, all right, stay tuned for some more. Thank you.